Hey guys, real quick before the video starts, I want to apologize for this video taking forever. The guy in this video is going to mention that it is Halloween. I understand that it is no longer Halloween. Can you guys just roll with it? So whenever he says Happy Halloween, just nod your heads. He's getting old, very senile. I'm gonna get back to Yu-Gi-Oh content as soon as this video is done. My next video is gonna be a Yu-Gi-Oh video. So if you subscribe for that, it's coming. Anyway, thank you guys so much for waiting, and enjoy the video.
Yay!
Being a Let's Player isn't as easy as everyone seems to think. You've got to be infallibly entertaining and charismatic, and willing to ride that precious algorithm no matter where it may end up taking you. I should know, I was once one of those people. I think I gave it a couple years of daily uploading videos of me playing basically whatever was at the top of the itch.io and GameJolt pages, and receiving basically zero attention before I called it quits. Seriously, look at all of these thumbnails. What on earth was my damage? Not to say that people that do this sort of thing are doing anything wrong, I just found that it just wasn't for me. So I switched to the content format that I'm doing now and feel a lot more accomplished whenever something that I put a lot of work into is received well. Speaking of which, thanks so much for all of the love on the recent video. You guys put a massive smile on my face. It did so unbelievably well, and I'm blown away by the amount of support that it got. You're all so wonderful. But anyway, during my time as a Let's Player, I came across a few games that left such an impact on me that I still gush about them to this day. I actually have a video already up on my channel about one of them, and if you happen to be interested, I'll put it up in the top right of the screen for you to check out later. But I figured I'd talk about a spooky one since it is one of my favorite holidays today. Oh yeah, baby, spooky season, yeah! The game's name is Animal Village, and to simply define it as a horror game does it a fair bit of injustice, so let me phrase it this way. Animal Village is a Silent Hill-inspired, Animal Crossing-themed, Resident Evil-like horror game with a narrative focus, an isometric perspective, and some minor RPG, dating sim, and Zelda-like elements. And Knuckles, featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. If that doesn't tickle the deepest cortexes of your brain, then I just don't know what to tell you. But if it does, and maybe you want to give that sort of experience a try for yourself, the link for it will be in the description below. If you're content just sitting back and letting your old pal Sass do the dirty work instead, then grab a snack and let's walk through this little gem together. Happy Halloween, everyone. Animal Village has a very light, cold opening, as the character we are playing as awakens in a square room, some faint light illuminating the stone walls from above. It's not exactly clear what we're supposed to be, but from the promotional art of the itch.io page, we're some sort of a blue humanoid wearing bunny ears. Ahead of us is a quiet, empty trail that leads us to a small clearing. Inside of that clearing, we happen upon a derelict little hamlet with a sign posted directly in the forefront that reads, Animal Village, visitors welcome.
Oh my god, it's the Animal Village from the title of the—
Just kidding. Animal Village has seen better days. Every building present is in a state of disrepair, with holes in the roofs, busted windows, and some entrances even being blocked off entirely. There's currently only 3 residents of Animal Village: Miranda the Rabbit, Rondo the Stray, and Mass the Butcher. The lore for this game is pretty interesting, and I'll be focusing on as much of it as I can throughout this video, since I think it's very, very cool. Mass the Butcher isn't important currently, so we'll focus on these 2 for now. Greeting both Miranda and Rondo is a great way to begin our journey of finding out exactly what this game is about, so let's do just that.
Welcome, I'm the guide of this place. This is Animal Village, formerly Human Village. It's empty as of now, but we're accepting visitors.
Formerly Human Village. That's Peculiar. Inside the home on the top left is Rondo the Stray. They've just arrived in this place and have set up shop in this building, offering the adjacent room next to his as our own. This will be our hub area that we can return to in order to save our progress. They also have this to say.
I came because I heard they needed settlers, and I guess I never had a place to call my own.
I guess we know why they're nicknamed the Stray, but furthermore, they pose an interesting question.
What did you come here for, by the way?
What did we come for? Well, perhaps that well in the middle of town can provide our answer. There's a letter that lets us delve deep into the darkness, and with no other way to go but down, we take the plunge into the abyss. The inside of the well is gloomy to say the least. Spiders, seemingly way larger than you'd expect to find in your backyard, skitter just out of our line of sight as your flashlight struggles to give you anything to work with. Animal Village does the abstract horror of exploring a dangerous and unknown environment very well, since although you can see the walls and obstacles in your path without needing to shine a flashlight on them, the enemies themselves can only be revealed when they are within your direct line of sight. Normally this would be a rather terrifying experience, but it seems our character came strapped for the occasion, wielding a pistol and absolutely not afraid to use it. I'm sure you've noticed the blood and bullets counter on the top of the screen, and these are the two resources of Animal Village that you'll need to keep track of in order to survive your expedition into the unknown. Bullets is self-explanatory. You can shoot as many times as you have bullets. Like, do I really need to baby you through this? Blood is your health bar, but also a resource that you accumulate as you defeat enemies. Mass the Butcher can turn your blood into bullets if you ever feel like you don't need the health. Somehow, he also peculiarly adds,
Don't worry, there's no charge. After all, this is a community service.
a community service that turns blood into live ammunition, eh? I can get behind that. It's not always necessary to use Mass's service, since bullets are strewn about the well's interior aplenty, but the option is always there in case your aim isn't on point. Curiously, just within the first area of the well is a tuxedo-wearing bird creature. He greets us thusly.
Why, hello there, sour madam. Beautiful day, no? Almost makes you feel like skydiving. You can go first, of course.
Before quickly ending the conversation with a brisk,
Let's meet again, yes?
this isn't a major spoiler, but this guy's name is Lyre the Blackbird. That's Lyre, that's Lyre, not Liar. We'll be sure to see this fellow again later. The main gameplay of Animal Village is going to be similar to what you would expect to see in an isometric Resident Evil remake game. You move through areas filled with slow-moving enemies and must combat them with tanky controls. I say tanky, but your character actually controls like they have soap on the bottom of their foot, moving just fast enough so that your low field of vision requires you to not break into a full sprint, lest you run face first into one of the many undead denizens of the well. You also can only fire your gun while you're standing still, having to press X to bring your pistol out and then Z to fire it. Yeah, this game's control scheme on keyboard feels very weird to use, since I'm so used to using the WASD keys to move and E to interact with stuff. Your first time playing this game is probably going to start like mine, where you're stuck on the title screen trying to figure out exactly what keys do what. You can play this game with a USB Xbox remote, but I only found that out way after I'd played through this game multiple times with a base keyboard controls, so I was too far gone. Rest in pepperoni slices, younger me. One of the reasons that I compared the gameplay of Animal Village to that of things like The Legend of Zelda is that the longer you play Animal Village, the more you come to find out that combat is more like putting the right key into a lock. Your bullets are those keys, and you need a certain amount of them to remove obstacles from your path. There are enemies that you can avoid just like in Resident Evil, but often there are roadblocks that demand a certain transaction of bullets in order to move past them. Also, for reasons we'll get to later, I recommend defeating as many enemies as you can in order to farm blood. You are going to need it later on down the line. The area beyond the door in the well is a 3-stage staircase, each section being locked and needing a real physical key that we must go find within each section. Before we enter the first of 3 areas to find that key, however, we're stopped by yet another sign warning us that if we go any further, we're sure to encounter ghosts. No other way to go than forward into what looks to be a hotel or apartment building of some sort. And just as the sign alerted us to, we end up encountering what the game game refers to as zombos. These don't exactly look like ghosts to me. They can even damage you if you end up touching them. They're fairly rudimentary enemies though, that slowly walk towards you if they happen to notice you. You have just enough time to notice them in your line of sight if you happen to be running forward, and can then slow down, back away, and attack them from a safe distance. They all take 3 shots to defeat, and while you don't need to defeat every one of them here, there are a few that reside in the main hallway that can damage you if you're trying to be stingy on ammo usage. Something you may start to notice as you go through each of these rooms is that these floor plans and textures look an awful lot like the ones back in Animal Village, but for whatever reason, there's blood practically everywhere. It really leaves you wondering what on earth a place like this is doing inside of a well. Could these zombos be the humans that once populated Animal Village? Questions for later. Regardless, in a pool of blood, we find the key that opens up the next lock on the staircase. The next area is more of the same. Shoot zombos, pick up ammo, and try not to run face first into danger by getting too hasty. Or at least it would be more of the same if we didn't encounter another animal friend in one of the rooms. This is Freya the Lioness, and she's not exactly psyched to be where she is right now.
I was on vacation here when some feathery asshole decided to throw the entire hotel down the pit, me included. If I ever catch the bastard, I'll make him pay.
Feathery, you say? Perhaps that well-dressed chap might have had something to do with this, methinks. Also, the entire hotel was thrown into the well? That's possible? Anyway, at the end of this section, we find the next key to move forward outside of a room in yet another puddle of blood. Going into this room reveals the top half of a person, organs spilling out from her abdomen. She apologetically tells us that she had to cut off her bottom half because it just wouldn't stop dancing. That's not an entirely great thing to hear. And this is where we get to one of the main difficulty spikes of the game: boss battles. Yep, this game has boss battles, and depending on your stance on the movement and shooting physics of the game's engine, it can be pretty hit or miss. Literally, you're going to need to hit your target, and if you miss, there's not a lot you can do besides give up and die. Outside of every boss battle room will be a plaque or sign with the specific number of bullets that you'll need in order to drop their health down to 0. Remember when I was talking about how bullets feel more like keys in this game? Don't even bother entering the next room unless you have, bare minimum, 12 bullets. And that's if you can hit the boss, because we're up against Ballet, the sentient bottom half of our poor disemboweled friend back there. At first glance, this battle seems fairly difficult, as there are 2 smaller ballet creatures constantly orbiting the boss, and their movement patterns seem very erratic with them being able to bounce off of each other and the walls. But the secret lies in trying to distance yourself as much as possible while they try to catch up with you, taking a shot or 2 and strafing back to the other side of the room to minimize the enemies being able to corner you. With Ballet defeated, we can unlock an elevator shortcut back to Animal Village and move on to the next area of the game: the graveyard. Before we head deeper underground, we can stop by a house that's somehow directly beneath the hotel and meet yet another friendly character, right, the Gravedigger.
I keep the crypt of my grandfather, the old judge. He was a feared man of law, prone to sentence folks to death over minor crimes. I hear he was buried alive.
Who the starts a conversation like that? Anyway, this is Mass's brother, and is the last of the characters that you can spend time with for a while. Oh yeah, we should probably talk about that. So, this game has minor dating sim elements, and while they aren't nearly as fleshed out as I would like them to be, I still think they're one of the most bizarre and endearingly quirky things about Animal Village. Once you expire all the introductory dialogue for a few specific characters, you're able to spend time with them, and understand not only the character that you're speaking with a little more, but your surroundings and the history of this locale. I like to clarify what I just said with the fact that there are no specific endings based off of any dialogue that you have with most of the characters, and every character only has about 3 different spend time events that don't affect anything other than your perception of the events of the game. I'll trickle some pertinent dialogue that characters have to say during these events throughout the video, since reading everything they have to say all at once would ruin the pacing of this video. I've also taken the liberty of cutting together or removing some superfluous lines for brevity's sake. I hope you can understand. Getting back to the game, in order to enter the graveyard, we must descend below the hotel using this staircase. All throughout this area, there are these floating eye creatures that back away from you when you approach them. They don't ever attack you, and they go down in a single shot. This is also the only area that they ever show up in, which makes for a very, very bizarre inclusion. And speaking of which...
You know the pit? It was always there, before the town was built. Humans of old used to revere the pit. Throw sacrifices inside and all that jazz. Not to get morbid, but the sacrifices, what a rotten way to die. Plucked out their eyes and their tongues so they couldn't see and they couldn't ask for help.
The ghosts? They just phased right through me. I tried to eat one, but I couldn't quite get a grip on him. Damn things. I bet they're why they threw the hotel down here.
These zombos seem to be a little more than animated corpses, but they're certainly not the strangest thing that you could find down here. There are these skull creatures named Smileheads that seem to be more aggressive and evolved versions of the Deadheads, and have the most bizarre sound design in the entire game. That's the sound effect you decided to use for that attack? Why? Why would you do that? These things take an exorbitant 15 bullets to take down, so they're almost always never worth the investment since you can easily sidestep them and continue on your way. They also have an ear-piercing shriek whenever you finally gun them down, and I don't know if this makes them more goofy or horrifying. Yeah, I don't even... I don't... Yeah. It's like playing those old Flash horror games that rely on jump scares and some tense atmosphere to do the heavy lifting. Once again, we grab 3 keys and are warned by another sign that we're going to need 18 bullets to take on the next boss. The judge is the big bad of the cemetery, and I actually consider him a little easier than Ballet. He's a boss shrouded in a black fog that requires you to be close by in order to use your flashlight to illuminate his completely decayed body. He regularly shoots out projectiles in a circular pattern from his torso, as well as a triple homing skull attack from a black fog location somewhere in the boss room. He's really not that difficult.
My mother was the one who tricked my grandfather into being buried alive. He wanted to sentence my father to death, you see. He never accepted my parents' relationship, thought a lowly butcher was not fit to marry into the family. Well, now he's dead, but his spirit still rages. Me and my brother drew lots over who would watch over him and who would inherit our father's business. I was the one who won, so I chose to become the gravedigger. That was before they threw the cemetery down the pit.
With the judge defeated, we're once again met by the same familiar hardwood floors of the hotel. Going further below, we find that we're on top of yet another building, somehow one level below an entire friggin' graveyard. Larry the Blackbird can be seen just to our left.
Good to see you again, sir, madam. Will you be going to the bottom of this pit? Me too. Let's race to the bottom. I'll give you a head start, of course.
So there's definitely a bottom, and this character seems aware of how close it possibly is. From experience, I can tell you that this is the final area, the government house, and the Gulag.
What a disaster! I came here because I thought they were done throwing things into the pit. And now, here I am. To think they even threw the government hall down here. By now, this pit must house a whole city of stuff.
This place looks desolate now, but it's 10 times better than how it used to be. It's just too full of stuff. A hotel, a government hall, cemetery, prison, houses, all sorts of useless shit. Who even goes to those places? Not me, that's who.
The government hall is a precursor to the final area, since you pretty much only need a single key before moving on to yet another level below. But this area is striking for 2 reasons. The first is just how many enemies exist here, and the second is the inclusion of 2 more enemy types, Bombos and Hellbulls. Bombos are just like zombos, but upon death, they explode into a bunch of projectiles similar to the Smilehead's vomit attack, meaning that you're going to want to keep your distance when landing the final killing blow. Hellbulls charge at you and take 8 bullets to take down, but they're usually not a problem since you can get them stuck on the environment or capitalize on them being too big to fit through hallways. Although I specifically bring up the Hellbulls because of their obviously almost identical appearance to both Rite and Mass, just something to consider further down the line. The key that we find in the government hall allows us entry into the true final area, the Gulag.
This pit used to be for getting rid of dangerous things, and long ago, getting cast into the pit was a worse fate than capital punishment. Many dangerous people were cast here, but the worst had to be the old king. He was a bloodthirsty tyrant who turned the basement of the government hall into a terrible gulag. My grandfather was the one who sentenced him to be thrown down here.
The Gulag is a maze of gel cells with bombos and zombos positively oozing out of every corner. While you try to locate 4 keys, scattered throughout this claustrophobic area are a few notes that talk about how the old king wasn't exactly happy with being locked up, and how he wanted to take the head of the jailer keeping him captive. The final notes simply reading, I heard screaming from the old king's cell. And once we're just outside of the boss chamber, we find what remains of the jailer. Looks like the old king really did end up taking his head. The sign up ahead warns us that we'll need 24 bullets to take out the old king, and once we're ready, we can step into the cell and take him on. The old king has 2 attacks. He can unleash a flurry of red bones aimed directly at the player, or he can attempt to grab you with his large hand. And while he may look pretty intimidating, he is actually the easiest boss out of all the 3 that we've talked about, since the red bone attack has an auditory cue, and his grasp attack doesn't reach all the way to the back of the room. He doesn't move at all, so if you simply fire from where you enter the boss chamber, you'll always hit his head even if it's not on screen, making this whole fight pretty exploitable. A shame, since I thought this boss had some pretty stellar build-up. Once the old king has been dethroned, you can head through a small corridor littered with nothing but corpses and a ladder leading even further below into the abyss. Once you head down this ladder, you're greeted with a pretty confusing sight, and this is where a lot of questions about what's really going on in Animal Village come up for discussion. Laying dead against a wall in a puddle of its own blood is a character that looks exactly like you do. When you go to inspect it, your character simply states that it's a seed. Whatever that means. Exiting the building that you found yourself in also has a similarly shocking revelation, as you come to find a little village that's almost an exact mirror of the one that you started your little adventure from. There are a few differences though. First of all, the sign outside simply labels the town as Human Village with no tagline. Secondly, one of the buildings that is boarded up in Animal Village is actually enterable down here in Human Village, although there are some blocks keeping you from entering the back room. Thirdly, it's almost abandoned, save for a few deadheads and our good friend Liar, who has somehow made it down here and is hanging out in the back room of what equates to Mash's butcher shop back in Animal Village. And he has this to say.
I finally figured you out, my lovely Madame or Sir. Don't worry, I'll keep your secrets safe. We are birds of a feather, see? Let's meet again. Yes?
What that could mean at this point, I couldn't tell you. And here's where the game branches off into 2 different endings. I'll label them as the neutral ending and the true ending. We'll do the neutral ending first. If you head into the well in the middle of Human Village, you'll find the actual bottom of the well. There's nothing but stone walls and a small corridor that leads to a pre-dug grave with a tombstone that reads, "Fertile ground ahead." You can interact with the hole that's been dug already, and your character has the option to sleep in the hole. It seems like your purpose has been to make it to the bottom of the well and purify everything within it. Clicking yes has your character simply lay down in the hole and go to sleep. This hits you with a big fat "the end" and then the credits roll. Something to note about these credits is that they do that thing some older games do by naming every character and enemy type just in case you were curious. The most prominent one I can think of is something like Banjo-Kazooie, but I swear there are other games that do this. These credits are how I was able to tell you what each of these enemies were called. There is one noticeably bizarre line of text in these credits which is very, very curious. And that is that after the ballet boss creature is listed, it's stated that no other creature made an appearance in this game, which is weird because as far as we know, there are a few bosses and enemies that go completely unmentioned here. It then lists off the friends and acquaintances we made along the way, ending with your playable character at the very end of the credits. We'll get into this line of text in a bit, but let's go ahead and talk about what I consider to be the true ending. Instead of heading into the well, if you head down the path leading out of town, the one that mirrors the path that leads you into Animal Village at the very beginning of the game, you encounter two things. The first is a pile of bones that is in the exact spot that you woke up in at the beginning of the game, albeit many levels deeper inside of the well. The second is a path off to the right that leads to a strange little bar that Liar the Blackbird has set up. He asks for 10 full liters of blood as a donation for, and I quote,
The ones in need.
if you give him what he asks for, you're allowed to spend time with him just like you've been able to with Miranda, Rondo, Wright, and Freya. But he's a little more direct, or indirect depending on how much you trust him. And this is exemplified by him instantly drinking all 10 liters of the blood that you just gave him in a single gulp. Oh my god, that's disgusting.
Sir or madam, you've touched me with your generosity. I wish to give you the most precious thing I can offer. The truth. Have you seen the other animal people in this here town? They were all once humans. The only ones here who are all animal are your humble host, and of course yourself. It's the fault of this pit's darkness, which has simmered for so long. You see, it has begun to seep out into the surface. This pit has a transformative effect on things, turning them occult, both in the sense of the supernatural and the hidden. In the unknowable darkness, the border between thoughts and reality becomes blurred.
He says a few other interesting things here, but we're going to skip them for now and loop back around later when we talk about the events of the game in retrospect. After exhausting Liar's dialogue, he disappears, and the 3 blocks obstructing our way to the back room in that one building have been removed. Before you enter, though, there's a note that simply warns you that by going downstairs, you accept responsibility for what happens. Waiting for you on the other side is Liar, standing before a giant walnut? A giant walnut. It's a giant walnut. Yes, it is as bizarre as it sounds, and it gets even weirder.
So you came. This is the lair of the King of Infinite Space, the very first thing sealed inside this pit. Humans managed to trap him in a walnut, and rolled him over the edge. That was a long time ago, though. To just bury yourself now almost seems like a waste, no? So, shall we open it? A fitting final encounter for this grand adventure, wouldn't you say? Sadly, I have nothing to scratch, so I'll just tell you. 32 bullets should down him.
If you decide to crack open the walnut, a metric ton of arms burst open, instantly killing both you and Liar. When coming back to play this game for recording purposes, I forgot just how jarring this sequence is, and doubly so because when it happened, my game actually got soft-locked on this black screen and I had to restart the game. I'm not sure if this is actually intentional or not because you load back into your save and walk the trail back towards Animal Village. Both Miranda and Rondo are laying on the ground, Rondo gravely wounded, and Miranda having passed away from her injuries. The King of Infinite Space has completely destroyed what remained of Animal Village, and is the final boss of the game. His head pokes out from the well, and just as Liar coached you before, you must shoot him 32 times before he goes down. He's actually fairly simple once you understand what he's trying to do. He's constantly spawning giant arms from black fog to claw at you, but if you're constantly circling the well in a large arc, you should have enough time to get a shot or two off before you need to begin circling the well again to avoid the next set of arms. With the final bullet nestled firmly in the King of Infinite Space's skull, there's only one thing left to do. Return to where we began the game and lay down to sleep. Once again, the credits roll with no changes to the information provided. So, what on earth was all of that about? What was the point of Animal Village, and what did all of that stuff mean exactly?
What's with everyone in this stupid town? They all speak like they know something you don't. What a bunch of pretentious assholes.
My thoughts exactly, yeah. Well, I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't have a few ideas and theories. Some sass theories! I'll admit that towards the end, the game drops a lot of information on you. I mean, there's literally a massive lore drop that you have to sit through before you can even get to the true ending. But I think a lot of the charm of what's said is that it comes from a very untrustworthy source, Liar the Blackbird. Notice that tagline, the Blackbird. Blackbirds have a pretty mixed rap in literature, either being the harbingers of death or being messengers from heaven. SparkNotes.com writes, arguably, the secret of the blackbird's symbolism lies precisely in the variety of its appearances. That is, the blackbird symbolizes the sheer variety of ways of perceiving and misperceiving the world. It's very hard to say whether Liar is an honest person or, well, a liar. We can analyze his appearances throughout Animal Village to try and dissect exactly what he was trying to do. When we first met him, he's just within the well, before we even enter the hotel for the first time. But as we progress, he seems to follow us down no matter how dangerous the path before us actually is. When chatting with him at the true bottom of the well, he says this.
Surely you've noticed the two valuables of this world of bullet and blood.
Surely a character such as him wouldn't bring up the concept of bullets unless he himself was familiar with using them. Sure, it's a gameplay mechanic, but I think about what Freya had to say about the creatures that you end up fighting inside of the well.
The ghosts? They just phased right through me. I tried to eat one, but I couldn't quite get a grip on him. Damn things. I bet they're why they threw the hotel down here.
There are two things about this statement. One, the zombos inside of the hotel are unable to harm Freya for whatever reason. And two, the zombos themselves are hypothesized to be the reason that the hotel was thrown into the well to begin with.
I was on vacation here when some feathery asshole decided to throw the entire hotel down the pit. Me included.
But why would Liar throw the entire hotel into the well if the zombos weren't a threat?
Surely you've noticed the two valuables of this world of bullet and blood.
Why are bullets valuable in this world? They allow you to farm blood from enemies. What is blood? Blood is life. As long as you have blood, you cannot die. One of the things Liar states at the bottom of the well is this.
However, there is a third value, unknowable to the eye, called loneliness. The more of it you have, the more blood you absorb, but also the more blood you lose. To rid yourself of it should you want to, all you need to do is mingle with the common folk. Of course, I would never rid yourself of such a useful tool.
This is a real, genuine mechanic that exists inside of Animal Village. I don't know the exact numbers, but the longer you go without talking to another living being, the more blood you obtain from damaging and defeating enemies. But you also lose blood at more alarmingly drastic rates. But why would Liar tell you about this? What's the point of letting you know about this mechanic at the very end of the game when there's literally no way to capitalize on it? I think it's very telling of where his mind is at. After all, once you've made your way all the way to Human Village, he compares himself to you.
We are birds of a feather, see?
What thing have you done that's similar to Liar? Besides making it to Human Village, of course. You've amassed a ton of blood after defeating Ballet, the Judge, and the Old King, alongside all of the other things you've killed. Did you ever think it was weird that each boss has a specific bullet requirement etched into some nearby sign? Liar all but admits it was he that wrote those requirements in order for us to be aware of how many bullets we'd need in order to survive the boss. But if Liar was aware of what was necessary to defeat the bosses, why wouldn't he do it himself? It's because of the risk of losing his investment. Liar's loneliness was very, very high when we first met him, and if you attempted to spend time with him, he would simply ask that you meet him again sometime later.
Many dangerous people have been tossed into the pit. I'm scared to think what might have become of them. Such deep darkness has a transformative effect on people. If you're interested, many people have gone dark bathing into the pit. The hotel roof below is perfect for such an occasion.
Liar is either a businessman or a politician. He certainly speaks like one, and from his knowledge of events, I think it's safe to say that Liar has been alive for a very, very long time.
This is the lair of the King of Infinite Space, the very first thing sealed inside this pit. Humans managed to trap him in a walnut and rolled him over the edge. That was a long time ago, though.
This story is told by two people, Liar and Right, although Right seems to think it's just a legend.
They say that the first thing cast into the pit was a terrible demon. He was called the King of Infinite Space. It's just an old legend though, nothing to worry about.
And remember that Right and Mass are descendants of the Judge, who is 2 generations older than them. The fact that Liar speaks of this story with no beating around the bush or hesitancy, alongside the fact that he knew exactly where the King of Infinite Space was hidden away, leads me to believe that Liar is one of the humans that helped seal him away all those unknowable years ago.
Have you seen the other animal people in this here town? They were all once humans. The only ones here who are all animal are your humble host, and of course yourself.
But this isn't true, if not for the obvious fact that blackbirds don't walk around wearing suits with human legs. We're clearly not a rabbit, only wearing rabbit ears.
It's the fault of this pit's darkness, which has simmered for so long. You see, it has begun to seep out into the surface.
Such deep darkness has a transformative effect on people.
In the unknowable darkness, the border between thoughts and reality becomes blurred.
No other creature made an appearance in this game. The more that you read this sentence, and the more that you look at the creatures listed in the credits alongside the ones that aren't listed, the more you can see what is trying to be communicated. Remember the old king? His face crumbles the same way that deadheads do when they're being killed. The Judge's horns and familial lineage suggest he's a hellbull similar to Right and Mass. These aren't massive hulking behemoth creatures. These are warped versions of simple specters, twisted and made more powerful by the creature buried at the bottom of the darkness in the well. The red-eyed creatures watching over the dead, like Right has been tasked to do. The spiders skittering out of view, seemingly disappearing off into some unknown corner never to be seen again, like what you'd hate to ever encounter in such a place. All created and draped up by the King of Infinite Space, still bound in the walnut. Did you know that walnuts are considered seeds? Yes, the King of Infinite Space is a seed, just like we are, corrupted by the darkness and depravity of humanity. I'm sure it's no coincidence that every character that's in a position of power is a demon. Right is the gravedigger, Mass is the butcher, and the Judge was, well, a judge. But Liar is an animal. Humans are animals.
This place was gross back when humans lived here. Whoever made them leave did us all a favor. The humans that lived here were all rude, inconsiderate jerks. None of them ever treated me kindly.
And Liar finally received his comeuppance by being eviscerated by the King of Infinite Space. I'm assuming he was trying to use us to kill the monster, and then he was going to kill us, much like he did to that poor seed back in the human village. So, what was our purpose in doing all of this?
What did you come here for, by the way?
We came to end it all. The pit, the darkness, and the filthy humans who caused it all.
Have you wondered why the pit rejects you? You've surely seen it. Should you have perished in the pit, you are spit right out. 'Tis because of your nature. This pit has become a dumpster of despair. It cannot mingle with your hopefulness. However, like water and oil, there are pockets of hope that have also accumulated. You are such a pocket, seeking the rich soil at the bottom of the pit to bury your hope there and change the pit's nature.
And we end our journey going to sleep full of hope for the future. Perhaps this dream will be one where everyone can be happy. Also, if you ever want to know what humans are supposed to look like, both the jailer and the disemboweled woman in the hotel are real, untwisted humans. Is that crazy?
Have you met Dolly? She's staying here too. She's a famous dancer. She was gonna do a show here, that's why I came, you see. We're old friends. I think I heard her say something about wearing new dancing shoes. I wonder what that's all about.
Yeah, your friend is hella dead.
Anywho, that's about all the time I can give Animal Village at the moment. Like I said before, you can give the game a try for yourself if you still want to experience the unabridged version for this whole shebang. There's a ton of stuff I wasn't able to cover given that I'm crunching to get this video out by Halloween. If I did that, yay! If you ever think, wow, it feels like this video kind of feels unfinished and rushed, literally I'm rushing to get it done. I have 5 days. I'm recording the audio 5 days before I have to like literally just crunch like a madman to get this video out. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like on it and commenting on your theories on what happened if you happen to have any. I would love to hear them. I make a variety of content here on TheSassJacket, so if you happen to enjoy this video, I have a plethora of others in the works and also already on my channel. Subscribe to always get notified when I upload another banger, and head on over to my Patreon if you want to support me monetarily, like these wonderful people right here. A huge thank you to ATK4May, Gideon King, and Chris Schmidt who are supporting me and my work. You guys are the best. Anyway, I'm gonna spend the day binging horror movies. Y'all have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.